Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to explore one of the most harrowing, yet absolutely remarkable chapters in history, the Underground Railroad. Now, to really understand this, we have to put ourselves in the decades just before the American Civil War. During this time, millions of enslaved people were trapped in a brutal Southern system that systematically denied them their fundamental freedom. It was a bleak reality, to say the least. But right against that darkness, a secret network quietly began to form. And they had one ultimate goal in mind: to help people escape to free states and up into Canada. So, it really makes you wonder, how do you escape a system designed to trap you forever? I mean, when the laws, the economy, and all the power structures are quite literally built to keep you in chains, how on earth do you break out? Well, the answer lies in the quiet, absolute determination of individuals who simply refused to accept the hand they were dealt. They came together and formed a network, operating entirely in the shadows, to create pathways to freedom right under the noses of the very system that sought to contain them. Now, when we hear the word railroad, our brains naturally picture physical trains, right? Iron tracks, big steam engines, the whole shebang. But the Underground Railroad wasn't an actual physical railroad at all. Actually, it was a highly complex, totally covert network of secret routes, safe houses, and incredibly brave individuals. This operation was a massive collaborative effort of both black and white individuals working together, shoulder to shoulder, in absolute secrecy to guide people to the north. Let's dive into our first major topic, the secret network. You know, we really need to talk about the word risk here, because operating this network required a truly staggering level of it. The brave individuals who were opening their homes as safe houses or acting as guides, they were stepping directly into the line of fire. Discovery meant everything. Their freedom, their families, and their very lives was entirely on the line. There was no safety net. Next up, let's look at the methods of escape. Because of that extreme danger we just talked about, they couldn't exactly just hand out maps or shout directions. They had to be brilliant about it. Vital pieces of information were hidden right in plain sight. We're talking about codes woven into the intricate patterns of quilts or instructions sung openly in spirituals, which allowed them to share crucial directions without ever arousing suspicion. And the physical movement? That happened almost entirely in secret, mostly under the cover of darkness. Without modern navigation, they actually relied on the night sky, specifically following the North Star, just to ensure they were continually moving toward free states and Canada. And what about the escapees actually making this journey? The physical and psychological toll on them was just immense. As I mentioned, they traveled mostly at night. That meant spending their daylight hours hidden away in barns, huddled together in dark, cramped basements, or completely exposed to the elements deep in the forests. Literally every rustle of leaves or distant voice could mean discovery. But they endured all of it, with the singular, powerful hope of reaching a place where they could finally be free. Which brings us to our next focus, the conductor, Harriet Tubman. So, Harriet Tubman was what the network called a conductor. Basically, that was someone who actively guided escapees along the routes. And what makes her story such a remarkable testament to human willpower is her background. She was a former enslaved woman who had successfully made that terrifying journey to freedom herself. But instead of just staying safely in the North, she chose to become a conductor. She returned to the South time and time again, willingly walking right back into the very system she had just escaped, taking on enormous personal risk solely to help others get out. Get this, Harriet Tubman personally guided roughly 70 enslaved people to freedom. Think about the logistics of that for a second. The planning, the absolute nerve required to successfully navigate 70 individuals out of hostile territory, sneaking past armed guards and trackers, and getting them safely into the North. It is a staggering personal achievement. Her mindset for all of this was simple and uncompromising: be free or die. Tubman actually famously carried a pistol on these journeys. Yes, it was for protection against slave catchers, for sure, but it served another very specific purpose. If anyone she was guiding became overwhelmed by fear and wanted to turn back, which, by the way, would instantly compromise the entire group and the whole network, she would sternly encourage them to keep moving forward. Once you started, there was absolutely no going back. Let's move on to our next section, the perilous journey north. The primary, relentless threat on the ground during this journey came from bounty hunters. Escapees weren't just quietly slipping away. They were being aggressively hunted down. These bounty hunters scoured the countryside, the roads, the towns, and they were highly motivated by big financial rewards to track down and capture anyone trying to reach the North. This meant that every single evasion tactic had to be flawless. The stakes here were devastatingly high. I mean, if you made a mistake, if you trusted the wrong person, or if you were caught by a bounty hunter, it meant severe, brutal punishment. It meant being dragged right back into the very system of slavery you had just risked everything to escape. The margin for error was exactly zero.
Which brings us to our final section, a legacy of courage. Despite those relentless bounty hunters, despite the harsh conditions of hiding in forests and that constant looming threat of capture, tens of thousands of people successfully escaped to freedom through this hidden network. Tens of thousands of lives completely changed, and it was all thanks to a massive, awe-inspiring operation coordinated entirely in the shadows by everyday people who simply refused to accept the status quo. The ultimate, hard-won goal of this massive undertaking was incredibly simple: freedom. It was the light at the end of the tunnel. It was the reason individuals risked their lives, memorized secret codes, and followed the North Star in the freezing dark. They were seeking the fundamental human right to live free from bondage. Because at the end of the day, the system they were fleeing was a profound injustice. You had millions of people trapped in a framework that denied them their basic humanity. And the allies of the Underground Railroad actively, consciously decided to fight back against that immense wrong. Ultimately, the Underground Railroad stands today as one of history's most powerful testaments to human courage. It wasn't built by huge armies or wealthy governments. It was built by ordinary people who made the choice to do extraordinary things. So, to wrap this all up for you, the Underground Railroad was a highly effective, completely hidden network, comprised of everyday individuals. Together, they faced down and overcame severe, life-threatening danger from bounty hunters and a totally oppressive system. And through sheer willpower and covert brilliance, they successfully saved tens of thousands of people, guiding them safely to freedom. It truly remains one of our most powerful examples of human resilience. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to chew on. We've seen how ordinary people, from Harriet Tubman to the countless unnamed individuals hiding people in their basements, stood up to a massive system of injustice. So as you reflect on the legacy of the Underground Railroad today, ask yourself, how can ordinary people show this kind of courage against injustice right now? What is our capacity today to fight wrongs in the modern world? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this leaves you wanting to dive in and learn even more about these incredible historical figures.